point guards in the game. Still to this day, at 38, Nash is still one of the top 5 point guards in the league. Nobody's going to argue that. It's an upgrade. And I think the reason why I still put the Lakers ahead of Oklahoma City right now is because of the motivation factor that Kobe now has, the motivation factor that Steve Nash has, and most importantly, the motivation that Dwight Howard has. Dwight Howard has a lot to prove now. You got your wish. You got out of Orlando. Maybe you didn't go to your number one destination overall, Brooklyn, but you didn't go to a bad option. At least you didn't go to Houston. At least you didn't go to Washington. You went to a pretty damn good fallback in LA. Dwight Howard is going to be motivated. He's coming off a back injury. People were questioning his heart. People were questioning his motives in Orlando. I questioned it. I'm raising my hand. Yep, that was me. I questioned it. I didn't think he gave it his all. It was obviously he was mentally checked out in Orlando those last 15, 20 games before he got hurt. Obviously, he felt strong-armed into signing that extension agreement to stay the rest of the season. He was sort of strong-armed. Okay, I admit it. Yep, I kind of questioned it. But because everybody questioned his motives, everybody questioned all those things, you have to believe Howard is going to come into this season extremely motivated. Extremely. And again, he's playing with Kobe and Nash and Gasol. I mean, the cupboard is not bare, buddy. You got a great situation you just fell into. A great situation. And by all accounts, probably a better long-term situation than being in Brooklyn. Look at the track record. Look at the guys you're following. Wilt, Kareem, Shaq. And I said it before. I thought he had this ridiculous notion that Dwight didn't want to follow in the footsteps of 3 of the greatest centers of all time. I thought it was absolutely asinine on his part. I thought it was so stupid and ridiculous. Why wouldn't you not want to follow 3 of the greatest centers that ever played the game? 3 centers who won, 11 and 12 titles for the Laker franchise. Why would you not want to follow that? Because to me, that's a track record of success. That tells you that the franchise knows what they're doing. That tells you that if you look at those 3 centers, what did the Lakers management, despite who was in charge, Jerry West back in the day to now Mitch Kupchak, that tells you that Laker management did what? They built around that big man. They put the pieces together around you. So it's going to be the same thing in LA. Dwight is, 26? So he's going into a situation where he's really going to be going into the prime of his career. He signs an extension next season or signs a new deal next season with the Lakers. His best years are to come. And if you pick up a title now, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's the tip of the iceberg. You get another year or 2 with Kobe. Lakers would then free up all this cap space a couple years from now. You'll have a ton of free agents wanting to come to play with Dwight. Because let's admit, he's got that smile. He's engaging. He's sort of like a Magic Johnson big man. That smile is infectious. And when he plays hard, there's nobody out there that can stop him. So I think the Lakers are the best in the West. I think Oklahoma City is still a close second. I think with some of the offseason acquisitions, I'll probably put the Clippers third. And then there's everybody else. In the East, I still think Miami is up there as number one, hands down. Boston is the second best team. I think Brooklyn is third best right now because of the injuries with Derrick Rose in Chicago. I'm going to put Chicago fourth. But now I'm going to put the Philadelphia 76ers fifth. I think previously I probably had the Sixers seventh or eighth with the team that was constituted at that time. I think now getting Bynum, the Sixers, you got to give the Sixers a grade of an A in getting to Bynum. That's a good move. It's a very good move. And if you throw in Jason Richardson, a veteran spot-up shooter, like I said before, Jason, like Hedo Turkoglu, there's some nights he might give you 22 and some nights he'll give you 8. Overall, he's probably going to average 12, 13 off the bench for the Sixers. But that Sixer team with Bynum now as the centerpiece, Drew Holiday at the point, Evan Turner is probably going to start at the 2. You got to think Thaddeus Young maybe at the 3, Lavoy Allen. I'm not really sure what their 3-4 situation is going to be, but clearly Bynum is going to be in the middle. And clearly Drew Holiday and Evan Turner will probably be in the starting lineup with him. Not to mention, Philly signed Nick Young in the offseason. Very good, streaky shooter, give you a lot of points off the bench. He's basically going to replace Lou Williams, who signed with the Hawks in the offseason. So Nick Young's going to replace Lou Williams. And then I said before, you got Jason Richardson. But I think the biggest impact on Bynum is going to be the coach for Philadelphia, and that's Doug Collins. Doug Collins, I think, is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I love his personality. I love his disposition. And most importantly, what I liked out of Doug Collins this past season with this young Philadelphia 76er team is I love his patience. He allowed this team to make mistakes. He allowed them to grow as a unit. And as a result, they made the playoffs, and they did okay. I mean, obviously ended up losing to Miami, but they did okay. They showed signs that if you give them another year or two of seasoning, a key trade, a key acquisition here or there, this team can now propel themselves into the top 3 or 4 in the East. And I think the key acquisition is Bynum. Unfortunately, you're losing Andre Iguodala, again, who I think is a poor man's Scottie Pippen. But unfortunately, in these trades, in order to get better, you got to give up something. You got to give up a key asset. And Iguodala was the best asset that Philly could give up to get the space to acquire Bynum. And again, I think it was a good move. I think Bynum is now close to home, close to Jersey. He's got a change of scenery. I think for Bynum, he's got more motivation, similar to Dwight. Bynum had his own issues in L.A. too now. Let's not forget. Bynum had his own issues. And I think for Bynum, his issues were more of his own ego in thinking that, he should have been a much more prominent figure in the Laker offense than he was. And, I mean, come on. I mean, Mike Brown gave you as many touches as he could in the new system. And by all accounts, Bynum became the second option to Kobe. I think based on some of the reports out of Bynum's camp, Bynum felt he really should have been the number one option at all times. Well, you don't really have number one option skills just yet. You got to slow down. Going to Philly, he gets his wish. You can essentially become the number one option. I mean, Drew Holiday and Evan Turner, Thaddeus Young, those guys aren't going to be number one options over Andrew Bynum. It's clear. Andrew Bynum is the number one option in Philly. He got his wish. Good for you. And you're going to a pretty good structure again, similar to Howard. The cupboard is not bare. This is going to be a playoff team. You have the ability to make a deep run in the playoffs. And you got a very good coach in Doug Collins, who's going to allow this young team to continue to grow together. And he's going to build that offense around Andrew Bynum. I think Andrew Bynum is and playing in the East, I think is also going to help Bynum. He doesn't have a lot of big men to go up against. I mean, really, the only teams the Sixers really have to worry about are the teams that I mentioned before them. Miami, Boston, Brooklyn, and Chicago. I think those are the only teams the Sixers have to worry about. So the Sixers, while they may not win the Atlantic Division, and they probably won't over the Boston Celtics, the Sixers are going to have a very good year. There's no doubt about it. They'll finish second, and again, they'll have a very good record. I could see him easily winning 50, 51 games, getting that 4 or 5 seed in the East, and making a deep run. And if they end up playing somebody like the Bulls, then who knows? Depending on what Rose looks like when he comes back, this team, on paper, the athleticism that the Sixers are going to bring to the table, another year under the belt for Evan Turner, who I think is going to be a star in the NBA. I think Evan Turner is going to be a star. I think he just needs to get starter minutes, and he started to show signs of that. I said earlier that Philly lost to Miami, and I correct myself. They lost to Boston. They started to show signs against Boston, Evan Turner did, in the playoffs this year, that he has the skill set to be a superstar in this league, and I think he's going to get there. And now, them letting Iguodala go to Denver, I think gives Evan Turner the bandwidth to display the skills that we saw when he was at Ohio State. Denver didn't really give up much, as far as I'm concerned. I give them an A in the trade in this transaction as well. Denver didn't give up anything. Aaron Aflalo and Al Harrington in a pick or two. So what? I mean, you didn't give up anything, and you're getting Andre Iguodala in return. I'll take that all day. I'll give up Aaron Aflalo and Harrington all day. First of all, giving up Harrington to me for Denver, I think made sense because they already had enough guys who were like Harrington on that team. You got Gallinari, you got Chandler. You already had a bunch of guys who could shoot the ball, so you didn't need another one. I think Denver becomes better. I think Denver may be now the 4th best team in the West, maybe 5th, behind Lakers, Oklahoma City, Clippers. I think Denver may be 4th or 5th best, depending on what Portland does, depending on what Dallas does this offseason or training camp. But Denver got better. The area that Denver struggled last year was defense. They didn't defend well. Acquiring JaVale McGee last year before the trade deadline was a sign that George Karl wanted to get this team better defensively. I've said it before. I think JaVale McGee is a pretty good center. He's very athletic. He's a good rebounder. He's similar to Tyson Chandler in a lot of ways. But I think defensively, he's not as good as Tyson Chandler. Tyson Chandler is the defensive MVP. But JaVale McGee is young. He's going to get better. And I think with Ty Lawson, Iguodala, assuming he's going to play the 2, Gallinari will probably start at the 3. Fareed, who gave them lights out numbers last season. I mean, Kenneth Fareed was just awesome. I mean, he's a stud. That guy is 6'9", 6'10", jumping jack, high energy, high athleticism. Fareed, really reminds you of a Dennis Rodman from a defensive and rebounding standpoint and tenacity, but he can score more. He's a better scorer. So I like this Denver team. JaVale McGee in the middle. You still got Andre Miller coming off the bench. Depending on if Gallinari or Wilson Chandler starts, you got one of them coming off the bench, Corey Brewer. So they got a lot of athleticism. Denver has a lot of athleticism, a lot of interchangeable pieces. They're going to be, a tough team. And with Lawson and Andre Miller, again, the starting point guard and the backup point guard, that's probably the best point guard duo in the NBA, Lawson and Miller. That's probably the best point and the best backup in the NBA. And they're the key to that offense. I think Iguodala is going to continue to give you what he gave you in Philadelphia, stat sheet filler. He's going to fill up, the steals, the blocks column, the assists. He's going to give you a lot. Iguodala will give you 15 points a game, 6 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. That's what he's going to give you. Steady, consistent ball. He's going to run. George Karl, everybody knows he loves to run. He loves up-tempo. He's going to do more of the same in Denver. And I think now with Iguodala, who's an upgrade from a follow, he's going to give you what a follow gave you last year times 5 easily. And again, I don't think losing Harrington hurts them one bit. I think it was just a smart move for Denver. They got better. And I like the move for them. The Orlando Magic, oh, man, I don't even know where to begin with them. I mean, they're just getting absolutely killed in the press. I just, I don't know where to begin with them. This is, without going into too much detail, I guess I'll just preface by saying, this is an awful team. This team is awful. This is awful. It was, the question I really want to ask is, was this the best that Orlando could come up with? Are you kidding me? Was this the best they could come up with? What were they thinking? What was Hannigan, the new GM, thinking? Really? I mean, based on the reports, Hannigan wanted to follow the script that he was a part of in Oklahoma City and previously before that the San Antonio Spurs. Specifically in Oklahoma City, young team coming off the lottery. If you remember, that's how they got Kevin Durant, number 2 overall. Young team coming out of the lottery, build a young team through the draft. Okay, now, there's nothing wrong with that philosophy. There's nothing wrong with building through the draft. And obviously it's worked well for Oklahoma City. You got Durant, you got Westbrook, you got Ibaka, you got Westbrook and Ibaka the same year, and then you got Harden. Great moves. But I'm not sure that always works out when you try to follow that playbook. And this is yet to be determined. Obviously, Hannigan is going into this with the mindset that all of these draft picks they're going to end up getting, they're getting 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. I know one of the first-round picks they're getting from the Lakers is 2017. I mean, that's 5 years from now. It's 5 years from now. It's not like they're getting draft picks, protected lottery picks next year. By all accounts, they're going to be in the lottery. If you look at this team, Jameer Nelson's at the point. Follow will probably play the 2. Hito at the 3. Glenn Davis in the middle. That's your center, big baby. And Al Harrington maybe at the 4. I don't know. J.J. Redick, Quentin Richardson. This team is terrible. Orlando is going to be terrible. I think they might be worse than the Wizards next year in the East. This is a bad, very bad team. Last year, they obviously made the playoffs with the 6th seed, finished 8 games above 500. But again, I think this team is probably worse than Cleveland. They're probably worse than Washington. They're probably still better than the Bobcats. But I think Orlando is definitely headed for lottery territory here. They will not make the playoffs. They don't have anything. So Hannigan, this strategy of trying to build through the draft. Again, what were they thinking? I mean, in hindsight, the opportunity for them to get, or the deal that was on the table last year in getting Brook Lopez and some picks, at least you would have got something for Dwight Howard. I mean, really, for all intents and purposes, they got nothing. They got Aaron Affollo, Harrington, and 5 draft picks. That's what they got. They got nothing in return. So it makes it look